congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're really happy that you've joined us, and we'd love to get you any information that you'd like about our congregation. After the service, if you haven't already, please stop by the newcomer table just outside those back doors in Robinson Lounge so that we can answer any questions that you have and get to know you a little better. Again, welcome one and all to UU Princeton this morning. A few announcements. The first is that Happenings in the back of your order has many announcements about our upcoming events and activities. So take a look at that when you get a sec. And in particular, please note that our Rainbow Ministry group is presenting a program titled It Starts With Us, Unpacking the Myths and Misinformation of Transphobia, which is a very timely topic. That is today after worship, 12 noon in Foz Theater. You can bring your most burning questions to a safe and loving space for discussion and answers, and it is led by our two worship associates this morning, Emma and Audrey. So that's today after worship, 12 noon in Foz Theater. And a reminder that if you're interested in joining a Chalice Circle, which are small groups that meet monthly for connection, sharing, and spiritual growth, please email chalicecircles@uuprinceton.org. And if you did that already and have been invited to the Practice Chalice Circle, a reminder that that is after worship today at noon in the John Murray Room. And lastly, the UU Princeton Harvest Party will be this Friday, October 6th from 6 to 9 p.m. It will be a night of revelry and fun that will include a DJ, the great company of our community, and delicious fall foods lovingly prepared by our guests. And this is an all ages event. Kids are welcome. There's a $10 donation per adult, but kids enter free. And volunteers are very needed for this event. We need about 20 volunteers to cover setup and cleanup and all that stuff. So far we have 3. So we need many more. If you go to the uuprinceton.org website and click the Sign Up Genius, they'll have a spot there where you can put your name down and help with setup or cleanup or any of the other things we need with our harvest dinner. You can also go there. There's a separate Sign Up Genius for whatever food you'd like to bring to the party. So please do that so we can have this event. We need more volunteers to make it happen. This Friday, 6 to 9, the harvest dinner here. And we are so pleased to welcome to the pulpit this morning, Reverend Charles Laughlin, Executive Director of UU Faith Action, formerly the Legislative Ministry of New Jersey, which our congregation was instrumental in creating back in 2006. Charles, as the Executive Director, serves as Faith Action's principal link with congregations, volunteers, coalition partners, and legislators in his capacity as Policy Director, Chief Administrator, and Advisor to the board of that great group. Charles joined UU Faith Action in 2020 as staff. He stepped into the role of Executive Director in 2021. He's a member of the Montclair congregation and did his internship at Morristown and went to Meadville Lombard Theological School. In addition to his policy, strategic, and advocacy chops, Charles is a developer of web applications and social media integrations. He is a wise, thoughtful, compassionate, and when needed, very fierce leader of this wonderful organization that serves everyone in the state of New Jersey, whether they like it or not. We're serving everyone in the state. So welcome, Charles, to UU Princeton this morning. And now, as many and as one, let us enter together this hour of peace, creating it together with our gratitude. May our worship be of praise and joy. May it offer comfort and beauty. And may it remind us of our unity, of our connections, and of our common bonds. Come, let us worship together.
Mindful of truth ever exceeding our knowledge,
and community ever exceeding our practice.
reverently we covenant together,
Beginning with ourselves as we are,
to share the strength of integrity
and the heritage of the Spirit.
in the unending quest for wisdom and love. Walter Royal Jones, Jr.
And let us join together in the spirit of prayer. Blessed be the Spirit who gathers us in joy and love, who balances our solitude with connection, who brings us to the company of those who make us laugh and think and feel and breathe easily. We are grateful this day for the sun and sky, for the moon and the stars, for the moments of day turning to dusk and dawn turning to day when the light paints the sky anew each moment. Lift our faces toward that light, its new and ancient and always changing beauty. And in this, kindle in us a sense of connection with all life united under that one light. And let our hearts hear the music of nature, so new and fresh and hopeful amidst the din and noise of what often surrounds us. Bring us into its peace that we may be more peaceful, that we may reflect more of nature's grace than today's noise. Spirit, we ask your blessings on the lonely, the tired, the anxious, the ill, and for guidance and courage in reaching out. Make us disciples of goodwill, frequent creators of those small kindnesses that linked together bring about great change. Make us mirrors of your grace and care. Make us patient. Make us good neighbors and better strangers. Make us forgiving, wise, and always willing to begin again in love. Great Spirit of our ancestors, our children, and of us, you have gifted us with life, one another, and a world of depth and challenge and beauty. Praise be to you for these gifts, and may we make the most of them by living together in peace and ever-growing goodwill. And here in the silence of this sacred space, we offer these, the prayers and meditations of our hearts. May it be so, and amen.
Amen. Our lives are full of questions.
Where's mommy?
I'm cold.
Where is daddy?
I'm scared.
Who are these other people taking care of me?
I'm lost.
Why do I have to wear pants today?
Everyone is looking at me.
Why do I feel so bad?
They called me a word. I don't know what it means.
Why shouldn't I put peanut butter in the VCR?
I don't understand.
Where's Charlie? Why isn't he at nursery school anymore?
I want to be loved.
What is cancer?
Everybody dies, even me.
Who puts the presents under the tree?
You lied to me.
Why can't I make any friends?
I am different.
Why does mom insist I cut my hair?
I don't like how I look.
Who is that person in the mirror?
It's not me.
Who decided that boys can't wear skirts?
I don't understand.
I don't understand.
I don't understand.
How can I dress how I want at school without getting bullied?
Nobody understands.
Why did dad leave? Is it my fault?
I'm scared I'll always be lonely.
How do you put on makeup properly?
Nobody will tell me.
What's non-binary?
I really don't fit anywhere.
Oh, excuse me. Where is the group meeting?
Oh, everyone else is confused too.
What should my name be?
I know who I am.
At least as much as
anyone
anyone does.
Thank you. That is so lovely. Good morning, everyone. So I am the Reverend Charles Laughlin. It's nice to be able to say that. And it is a distinct pleasure to be here with you this morning. I am the executive director of UU Faith Action New Jersey, And if you know anything about the history of UU Faith Action, formerly the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministries of New Jersey, because we UUs just love names that roll right off the tongue, then you know that it was this congregation that led the way in establishing UU LMNJ. It was the vision of a collaboration amongst UU congregations in New Jersey to advocate for our values with the New Jersey State Legislature, and it was born here in this congregation. And you know, through the years, this congregation has been a champion for UU Faith Action. We state proudly that our vision is to build a just New Jersey, free from systemic oppression and greed, full of engaged people, committed to each other, to our communities, and to the earth. That's a grand vision, isn't it? Our mission is to educate, to advocate, and to mobilize, and our work is centered around our task forces, which currently include criminal justice reform, environmental justice, immigration justice, reparations, and reproductive justice. So, time for the commercial. If you haven't already, I urge you at some point today to visit our website. That's uufaithaction.org. And at the very top of the page, there's a link to sign up for our emails and text alerts. That is the best way to make sure that we are connected with you. We can send you updates, action alerts, our newsletter, our calendar of events, and more. We only send to people who have opted into our system. So if you want to hear about us through those channels, you need to go there. I also want to take a moment to thank you for your ongoing financial commitment that makes our work possible. It is about 30% of our budget that comes from the direct support of affiliated congregations like UU Princeton. But nearly 70% of our funding comes from the generosity of individual donors. Those who see social justice work of UU Faith Action as vital to their own UU identity and their UU values. It is your support that is making a real difference on issues of equity and justice as we work collaboratively, not only with our UU congregations, but with frontline communities, with advocacy groups, and with our coalition partners. I am so grateful to Reverend Bill for the invitation to be here today. Frequently, it is services like this that are the opportunity for UU Faith Action to connect with the congregants in our UU congregations. So many people hear about us for the very first time by attending a service like this. And I have to tell you, it's one of the favorite parts of my job, is being able to come to a congregation to be able to share something about what we do. And I look forward to the conversations that happen afterwards. It's often those conversations over coffee where those real connections are made and we can learn more about each other. And yet I have to apologize to you this morning because this very afternoon, I'm going to be leading a workshop at our UU congregation in Cherry Hill as they're thinking about their own social justice program and possible changes. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave relatively soon after the service this morning. But I already begged Reverend Bill to invite me back sometime. And we'll just set up a table. We'll have coffee together. You don't have to make me preach to you again. You'll have heard enough of that today. But I look forward to the possibility of that day. But for today, I want to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I have put Reverend Bill on the spot. I'm using some slides. I have been warned that slides are not the easiest thing to see with all the wonderful light here in the congregation. But we're going to make the best of this. We're going to see what happens. We'll see if this thing works. And if not, we'll trust you. I want to begin by posing a question, actually a couple of questions to you. The first question is, what do you know for certain? Ruminate on that just a moment. What do you know for certain? And the second question is, How can you know it's absolutely true? You know what? Those are big questions. In theological language, those are questions of epistemology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. It is concerned with the nature of knowledge. What does it mean to say that someone knows something or that someone doesn't know something? But there is a second concern in epistemology, and that is related to understanding the extent of our human knowledge. It asks questions like, how much do we or can we know? How can we use our reason, our senses, the testimony of others, and the various resources at our disposal? How can we use that to acquire knowledge? Here's a question epistemology asks us: are there limits to what we can know? Are some things simply unknowable? Is it possible? Could it just be possible that we do not know nearly as much as we think we do? And a big question, is it possible that we do not or cannot truly know anything at all? What do you know for certain? And how do you know that it's absolutely true? Well, let's have a little fun. I'm going to make a statement, and we're going to see in the room if you have consensus about whether this statement is true or false. You ready? First statement: the Great Wall of China is the only human-made object easily visible from space. If you think that is true, would you please raise your hand? See some hands. If you think that is false, please raise your hand. If you have no idea, please raise your hand. So here's the truth. There are lots of human-made structures that are visible from space, and the Great Wall of China isn't one of them. Who knew, right? Okay, second statement. Humans have exactly 5 senses, and those senses are sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. If you think that is true, raise your hand. Ooh, we might have consensus on the negative here. If you think that is false, raise your hand. Well, the answer: humans also can sense balance, acceleration, pain, temperature, and actually a host of other sensations. And depending on how you count, there are anywhere from 9 to 20 different senses. Final statement. We'll see if you were paying attention to the wisdom story. The earth revolves around the sun. If you think that's true, raise your hand. There's a lot of consensus here. If you think that's false, is there anyone who thinks that's false? Anyone still living in pre-Copernican days? Oh, I see a hand, a brave soul. Guess what? The earth actually revolves around the solar system's center of mass. It turns out that that center of mass is often, in fact, usually the same as the center of the sun, but not always. So technically, we are not revolving around the sun. We are revolving around the center of mass. Now, we could go on and on and on. Now, some of you experts in epistemology, you might observe that in each of these carefully curated examples I've brought to you, the statements that I made are generally believed to be true because we have been told over and over and over that they are true. And given that most of us do not have direct experience with the domains that these questions are asking, we rely on common knowledge, the accepted answers. However, we are somewhat accustomed, are we not, to discovering that such common knowledge is often wrong. Even if you thought any of those statements were true, you might have been reluctant to claim that that truth came with absolute certainty. You know, we Unitarian Universalists, we don't tend to go for the absolute certainty side of things. I'll give you that. But let's consider another example here. Let's see if this slide works. take a moment, if you can, to see that math problem, and I actually want you to try to solve it. Take a moment right now in your head and try to solve the math problem that you see. If you can't see it, I'll try to read it to you, and if you're online, maybe you can piece it together here. But the math problem on the screen says 8 divided by 2 times parentheses 2 plus 2. Anybody have an answer? Okay. Okay. I see a lot of ones. How many people think it's 1? What do you know for certain, and how do you know it's true? Anybody got a different answer? What? This is math, folks. We cannot come up with different answers for equations. Anyone else? Ooh, I think there's a Unitarian Universalist in the room. So you might have thought that the answer was 16. Or, as most of the room thought, the answer was 1. And a good portion of you are thinking, are you really making me answer a math question on a Sunday morning? Well, here's what your reasoning was like if you think the answer is 1. It goes something like this. We add 2 plus 2 first because it's in parentheses. Then we multiply the result of that by 2. That leads us to the equation 8 divided by 8. And 8 divided by 8, we all know, is 1. By the way, this is why math teachers want you to show your work. They actually want to see what your thought process is doing. It isn't just to be mean. But if you think the answer is 16, your thought process went in a different direction. It went something like this. You still add 2 plus 2. I think we're all in agreement that we have to solve what's in the parentheses first, right? That leaves us with 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now we're at 4 times 4, and that clearly is 16. Anybody want to change their mind on the correct answer? What do you know for certain? And how do you know it's true? So what's the deal? Order of operations. If we were doing this math problem 100 years ago, the accepted answer would have been 1. So all you people who thought it was 1, you're just classic. But the accepted answer today is 16. Why? This is math. We're supposed to arrive at the same answer. How does math work if there could be different answers to the same problem? Well, the difference, as you have rightly noted, is a difference in the modern and the historical interpretation of the order of operations. That's a fancy word for saying how we decide what to do, the order in which we do things. This is commonly taught today using an acronym. How many of you have heard of PEMDAS, right? Well, first, PEMDAS says we resolve anything that's in parentheses. The P is for parentheses. Next, we resolve any exponents. The E is for exponents. Don't worry, there are no exponents in this problem. You don't even need to know what they are. And then we get to where things have changed over the last 100 years. Because 100 years ago, the accepted rule was you did all multiplication first because it had a higher order of precedent, a higher order of operations than division. But the modern interpretation is that multiplication and division are completely at the same order. And if that's the case, then you have to solve the equation in order from left to right. Then we move on to addition and subtraction, also the same order, so they have to be solved from left to right. So the reason for the difference in our answers between 16 and 1 is there was a change in the underlying rules of mathematical notation. What do you know for certain? How do you know it's absolutely true? It would seem that in the domain of mathematics, we are as elusive as we were in the domain of common knowledge. Galileo is purported to have said that mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. But even if that's true, our foray into this changing mathematical notation reminds us at the very least that it is far too easy for things to get lost in translation, even in a math problem. And maybe that's the point. Maybe, just maybe, absolute certainty is completely illusory. One of my guiding influences, one of the beacons in my life, was Carl Sagan. I grew up watching the show Cosmos on PBS. How many other Cosmos watchers do I have here? Great television it was. In Sagan's final book, which he co-authored with his spouse, Anne Druyan, as he was dying, The Demon-Haunted World, he has this to say. I apologize, it's a little bit of a long quote, but it goes directly to what I'm talking about. Every time a scientific paper presents a bit of data, it's accompanied by an error bar. A quiet but insistent reminder that no knowledge is complete or perfect. It's a calibration of how much we trust what we think we know. If the error bars are small, then the accuracy of our empirical knowledge is high. But if the error bars are high, then so is the uncertainty in our knowledge. Sagan says, except in pure mathematics, nothing is known for certain, although much is certainly false. Moreover, scientists are usually careful to characterize the veritical status of their attempts to understand the world, ranging from conjectures and hypotheses, which are highly tentative, all the way up to the laws of nature, which are repeatedly and systematically confirmed through many interrogations of how the world works. And then Sagan breaks my heart because he says, but even the laws of nature are not absolutely certain. There may be new circumstances never before examined inside black holes, say, or within the electron, or close to the speed of light, where even our vaunted laws of nature break down. And however valid they may be in ordinary circumstances, they then need correction. He says, and this is the only thing you need to remember from my sermon, really. Humans may crave absolute certainty. They may aspire to it. They may pretend, as partisans of certain religions do, to have attained it. But the history of science, by far the most successful claim to knowledge accessible to humans, teaches that the most we can hope for is successive improvement in our understanding, in learning from our mistakes, in an asymptotic approach to the universe, but with the proviso that absolute certainty will always elude us. We will always be mired in error. The most each generation can hope for is to reduce the error bars a little and to add to the body of data to which error bars apply. The error bar is a pervasive, visible self-assessment of the reliability of our knowledge. You can often see error bars in public opinion polls, an uncertainty of plus or minus 3%, say. Imagine a society in which every speech in the congressional record, every television commercial, every sermon had an accompanying error bar or its equivalent. That's scripture for me. And in that passage, Sagan says it pretty clearly. He says absolute certainty will always elude us. And I think he's right, but there's a danger here. Am I certain? That's a great question. I'm sure we all were. But I want to lift up that there's an actual real danger here. And it's not a hypothetical danger, it's a danger we're living right now. You see, to accept that absolute certainty eludes us becomes too easily a slippery slope in saying that nothing can be known at all. The Unitarian Universalist theologian Paul Razor, in his book, Faith Without Certainty, argues that the great postmodern challenge is the loss of certainty. He says, in the postmodern world, there is no such thing as certain knowledge or ultimate truth. Things we once thought gave us firm foundations, such as universal human reason or common experience, they turn out to be bounded by language and culture and gender. Everything is relativized. What we used to think of as truth is now seen as interpretation. And that's what scares me. I am worried of a relativism that is so deep that it fosters a skepticism and a dark cynicism. It is the danger of extrapolating that because there is no certain knowledge or ultimate truth, that there is no truth at all. And you better believe we are seeing politicians in this country trying to assert exactly that. If my faith tells me anything, it is that truth matters. It absolutely matters. So maybe it's time to rephrase the big question slightly, given what Carl Sagan has told us. What do you know? How do you know it is true? Now, I am conceding that I do not know with certainty. I cannot know absolutely, but my faith calls me to the question. And there's even, I would suggest, a notation that I might find helpful. Have you seen this graphic before? At General Assembly this last summer, the gathering of all of our Unitarian Universalist congregations, a major part of the discourse has been around proposed changes to Article 2 of our UUA bylaws. Article 2 is the section where our principles and our sources are laid out. This graphic is part of the proposed changes that are going into place, or will be if we vote on it again next year. I am suggesting this morning that these proposed changes to Article 2, including this graphic, are to some extent an attempt to answer at this very moment, in this particular context, what we as Unitarian Universalists say we collectively know. The graphic is, in a way, a similar function as the mathematical notation we were looking at earlier. It's not the same as the truth, but it helps us to understand the truth. It is a path towards answering the question, what do we know? And it tries to give a clear and unmistakable answer that we aspire to center love in everything we do. Oh my God, isn't that a simple theological statement? How many times have you had someone ask you, what do UUs believe? And you fumble all over yourself trying to get to the answer. Well, it's this, but it's this, but it's not this, but it's that. But what a simple answer. Everything we do in love. That could turn the world upside down. What does it mean if our collective answer to what we know is that love is the theological center of everything? Yes, we value, we lift up, we try to create interdependence and equity and transformation and pluralism and generosity and justice. God knows we need justice, but all of it is centered in love. And that's what gives it meaning. Why do we exist? Because we believe in love. And not some wishy-washy feel-good slogan. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a codependent, vapid emotion where there's no real accountability to one another. Not a self-effacing and deprecating respectability that is all too willing to bend the knee to power. No, this is love. This is a love that will not let you down. This is a love that will not let you go. This is a love that will not let you off the hook. It is a radical love. It is a revolutionary love. Oh, friends, it could be a redeeming love. What a potential bold answer to the question of what we know. And how do we know it? Well, we will only know it if we live it. We will only know it if we allow it to transform us individually and collectively, and to transform our communities, if it makes a difference in our lives. Love is at the center. This I know. I'm almost certain of it. But now, finally, for all the English majors who perhaps felt excluded by all the math problems today, I want to offer this consolation. Consider the comma. I mean, it too is a kind of notation, is it not? And as this sentence so clearly illustrates, it changes the meaning completely. The use of the comma makes a big difference. Use a comma, save a life. What do you know? How do you know that it's true? Let it be love. Let it be love. Let it be love. Let's join together for our closing hymn. Friends, these are words from the song We Shall Be Known by Carisha Longaker of Memuse. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now. And what a time to be alive. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. Yes, in this great turning, let us learn to lead in love. Amen.